she was killed. And they
The
tried
top
to
six
cover it
girls
up.
really look great, but you seem to have that perfect
I
aesthetic
wasn't
look.
into hip hop or even soul music.
There are definitely people that need a little Viagra.
RX Television on rxmuscle.com. This is Iron Debate, the show where we settle the score. This is a special pre-Arnold Classic episode of Iron Debate. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Let's meet our esteemed panel. It is a West Coast edition of Iron Debate as we first go out to California, bring in the real deal, Chris Cormier. Chris.
What's up?
You got clients up the wazoo in about 45 minutes, so we're going to try to get him in as many calls as we possibly can. Vegas, Dom Cardone, New York transplant, and of course, my fellow old school brethren, Milos Sarcev. That's how you pronounce it, right?
That's how you do it.
All right.
Thanks.
We had a you're Serbian,
What happened to
right?
Misko? I thought it was Misko.
Milos, you're Serbian, right?
Yeah, I'm Serbian. Listen.
Yeah, I had after our last episode of Iron Debate where we had a Serbian fan message me, and he gave me the full pronunciation guide. I mean, pretty much the full etymology of your name. So now I can't get it wrong. Milos Sarcev. And then of course we go to our Cape Coral studios and welcome in the man with the final word on all topics, Dave Palumbo. Gentlemen, let's get right into it. So many reasons for excitement this upcoming weekend, the Arnold Classic. Obviously, it is going to be a bit of a different feel, just like in 2020, where we're not going to have the Arnold Sports Festival. So instead, in a sense, the mini Olympics will not be there, but the bodybuilding action will be there, albeit an abbreviated event at that. Only men's open, classic physique, fitness, and bikini. But you look at the men's open lineup, and a lot of it was started off by the comments by Sergio Oliva Jr. on this channel on Heavy Muscle Radio saying he wanted to see the biggest names come out and compete. He wanted the Arnold Classic to be this blockbuster event, and that's exactly what we have here. I'm going to rip through
Sid, it's important also to mention that Arnold really, Arnold could have canceled the Arnold this year, and he decided that, he didn't want to go a year without crowning a champion. So he basically, they're putting up their own money for this show. There's not much profit here because there's no expo, so you got to kind of applaud Arnold in a sense for at least making this thing happen. And it was smart to do it 2 weeks before the Olympia because they got the best lineup of all time.
Yeah, let's rip through it. So you have William Bonac, obviously, who's won 2 of the last 3 Arnold Classic titles. Max Charles, Sung Chul Lee, a lot of excitement surrounding him and his progress. Muhammad El Imam, who's going to be competing at, I believe, his 5th show this season, vying for an Olympia spot. Steve Kuklo, Hassan Mustafa, Sergio Oliva Jr., obviously, Justin Rodriguez, Ian Valier, Nick Walker, and Akeem Williams, fresh off his top 6 finish at last year's Olympia. Not there, removed from the list, is Ruli Winkler. So another top perennial superstar powerhouse who's not going to be in this lineup. Milos, let's go to you first on this one. Obviously, so many storylines. What excites you most as you look at this lineup this upcoming weekend?
Well, it excites me that there's so many guys that can win this show. But having Chris Cormier on this show, it's about the Arnold Classic. I'm going to rewind just a little bit for a minute. I prepared Chris for one of those 2002 or 2003. Then he was going against Jay Cutler. So back at that time, for me especially, I'm sure for Chris and many purists, aesthetically pleasing type of proponents. Like if you want to shape, to dominate, I was really thinking, Chris is going to win. But then Jay Cutler, one being Jay Cutler, he overpowered him. He was wider. I remember Chris said, I lost to the fridge. But in sense of, there was always this debate now, which directions judges are going to be going, at aesthetics and shape or a mass monsters? Because this is really what he said. Considering that conditioning could be equal, right? Shape or monsters. Shape guys usually have a better balance. It's monsters are usually just packing on the muscles, so it could be off the balance. Do exceptions, but still, monsters were winning the shows, for so many years. Monster is Mr. Olympia right now. So going on this Olympia Arnold Classic stage, I think they're going to be still looking mainly for monsters. And monsters that are appearing there is Akeem Williams, that was top 5 at the Arnold Classic. If he comes conditioned, I think he's going to overpower Bonyak. Bonyak being twice Arnold Classic champion, tons of muscle, but structurally narrow, next to somebody that can really overpower him in width. You know, this it can go either way. Another monster is Steve Kuklo. I mean, 290 pounds and not missing anything. So I see that that could be one direction if they're going to go for a mass monsters. Hassan didn't place anywhere in last some of the shows, but everybody see potential, thickness, all the muscles there just need that little fine tuning and conditioning. So he would go into that group of monsters. And then when you look from the shape size, there's Justin Rodriguez and Sergio. They are more shapely and almost as big, which I can't wait to see them being compared and how far are they up size-wise, and are they bringing better shape that could be considered to beat these guys. I would be always biased when I said that my athlete, Max Charles, is one of the front runners, but somehow always gets overlooked. Last year at Arnold Classic, when I saw him 2 days before a show, I was like, oh God, this is the best conditioning I could anticipate in the whole show. And he was, but he wasn't even called until the third call out. So since then, every time he stepped on the stage, I said, they cannot overlook you this time. And then next time I have to tell him the same thing. So finally, in last 2 shows, they recognize his improvements. They realize, oh, he's a shapely monster. He has everything, like cartoonish character, you know, cab delts, full chest, striations, crazy arms, you know, perfect waist, abs. I mean, so here comes Max, that I'm sure that is not in conversation for many of you. Here comes Nick Walker, the newcomer with a lot of hype. I see the statement, so I'm going to Arnold to win.
Yeah.
And it's one thing. It's great to be confident and believe in yourself by all means. But there are, you know, different ways of saying it. You know, you can say you like your chances and you believe this and that. But a newcomer that only did the 2 pro shows once, he placed 4th in Chicago, losing to the 3 guys that are going to be on the stage with him, and then just winning this New York prestigious contest. Yeah, it's a nice push, but just like Jan Barriere, he had 2 recent victories. And if you look, actually, even a little bit back, Jan had 3 back-to-back victories with New York last year, and then 7th place at the Olympia. So there are a lot of great champions that can take over. Siddiq, you said something very interesting about Sung-Chul Lee. This is a Korean guy that maybe it's not household name for many people now, but he will be after the show. The guy is phenomenal. I watched him since 2018. I was in China when he won his pro card. Guy has everything. He's thick, he's aesthetic, he has round muscle bellies, tons of muscle, and he didn't get in the crazy conditions so far. And now he looks he's top on. So Sung-Chul Lee, with a condition, is going to be a real contender.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, again, Milos pretty much breaking down really a lot of the reasons that we're going to be looking forward to this lineup. Chris, let's go to you next. Just in terms of a broad overview, when you look at this really potentially historic lineup for the Arnold Classic, what excites you the most heading into the weekend?
This is going to be like a validation competition for a lot of these guys. I feel like, you know, you have some returning champions, you know, like Bonak. And, you know, he seems to be, you know, looking a lot fuller. I thought he was, I think, you know, even though he tried, I think he had a kind of a down year last year, just coming back from the injuries and stuff like that. And probably needed more time to get in shape. But he's looking, a lot fuller and looking in really good condition. I think he just had a little bit left, just from judging from the photos I've seen lately, just a little bit left in his lower back, and I'm sure that's going to be gone before this show. And then I want to see this guy Nick Walker, how he stands up next to the likes of the Sergio and some of these other guys that he wanted to see how he looks next to those guys. But I think then there's who is it? The Beast. I mean, the Brooklyn Beast. Like if he can come in sharp as he did, for the Olympia, or even get better this year, hopefully he's going to be a strong candidate also. But I just want to see these guys mix it up. Got King Snake coming in. I thought he probably could have even placed better in the last show he did when he took second. I thought he probably could have won that show. I'm just looking. I just want to see these guys mix it up, and hopefully they get a long time on the stage, since there's not a whole lot of stuff going on. To get compared profusely, this time, and not have like some kind of tight window of competitors behind them where they have to rush through the show or the judging.
It's a great point, Dom.
Yeah, so I'm excited for the entire show. Top to bottom. We have many veterans coming in. We have new guys like Nick Walker. It's like Milos said, you have a lot of mixed bodies coming into this. You got some mass monsters, you got guys with great shape, great conditioning. In my opinion, the two guys I'm really looking forward to seeing is going to be Akeem and Sergio. I'm a little biased with Akeem. He's my boy, from Brooklyn. But we seen him at the Olympia. He looked outstanding, placed 6, so he has that going into there. He won the Puerto Rico Pro this year. He looked even better than the Olympia. And knowing Akeem, he gets better from show to show as long as he, stays within striking distance. And he's been doing that for the last year and a half. He's gotten better. So I'm predicting he comes in here and he gives everybody a big run for their money, because his whole backside in Puerto Rico Pro was much tighter, much more put together. He has details all around that he didn't have for the past few years. So, and plus two, he's just a freak. His front double bicep, his side shots are just crazy. And then Sergio, again, another one of my favorites for this show. I seen pictures of him a few weeks ago, and he looked outstanding. And usually Sergio, a few weeks out, he doesn't look, he looks freaky, but he doesn't have like that hardness like some guys coming in. But then those last few days, he just changes. So he looked hard. His chest came way up. His back looked great. He was in phenomenal conditioning. And, of course, he has great shape as well. So, those two guys I'm really, really looking forward to seeing going into this. You have, of course, Ian Valliere. Ian's been on a good hot streak. He'll definitely be in the mix here in that top 5 for sure. Of course, Bonac. Bonac, I personally haven't been too impressed with him the last year. Obviously, he's done really well. But from my opinion, I seen like the legs were starting to get a little bit shallow at the Olympia and the past couple of shows. And you have some really freaks going to it. You have Steve Kuklo, who's hot right now. Nick Walker, who it's going to be interesting to see him line up next to his mass monsters, because on his own, he looks outstanding. Great conditioning. He looks massive arms, great legs, but when you put him next to guys on stage, and that's where, things really get exposed. Like, for instance, last year at the Chicago Pro, I believe it was, then this year I had the New York Pro. He won the show, but it wasn't a steal show for him, between him and Justin. So that's a whole nother person going to the show is Justin. I'm a big fan of his physique. He's made tremendous improvements. His shape is outstanding, tiny waist. If he comes in truly peeled, he'll be another one in the mix. But there's not one person in this show I'm not excited to see, because even Mahmed Almam, we've seen him a few times this year. I got to see him in person, I believe it was at Tampa. And, it's one of those guys, he comes out and he's just a freak. He was just missing those last, that last bit of conditioning and tying the posing a bit more. So, the show as a whole is going to be, a really, really excited one. So, and there's a lot of names. Every name in here is going to, they're going to come and make their own statement if they come in 100%.
Dave, your top storyline for the upcoming weekend?
You know, I'm a big Ian Valliere fan. I really like his physique a lot because I think he's got that big structure. Him and Kuklo, I think structurally, to me, look like Olympia guys. And I love Steve Kuklo, too. I think it could have gone either way with him and Ian in that Texas Pro. I know Steve wants to go to the Olympia. He has to win this show to do that. You know, I think we're going to see the best Steve Kuklo we've seen. I think we're going to see the best Sergio we've ever seen. And I'm a huge Sergio fan, so I'd love to see him come. If he won the show, I think that would be the feel-good story of the weekend for sure. Until we see him in that lineup, we won't know that. I think Ian Valliere, because of what's going on in his household there, we all know this. We don't have to rehash the whole story, but with the arrest that went on earlier this week, and I think that's a lot of stress. I hope it doesn't affect Ian's conditioning, but I don't see how it can't. So that's a storyline that we have to kind of keep in the back of our head. There is an asterisk there, so to speak. Of course, Bonak's coming to win this show. I do agree with Dom that Bonak hasn't looked quite as dominant this past year as he has in the past. I think he was dealing with injuries. If he is injury-free...
Yeah, he was hurt.
Yeah, if he's injury-free, I think he's going to be the guy to beat, though, I think, because he's the highest-ranking guy in this lineup. He basically has no flaws in his physique when he's in shape. I mean, he has no gaps. There's no missing body parts. So I can't imagine him not winning the show if he's at his best. However,
and
there's very
judges
big
like
structure,
him. Judges
right?
like his body.
Yeah, and the judges like him. They put him second, at the Olympia before. I think we got to see, what these guys look like. But I'm excited because I think this is the first legitimate time we're going to see guys that were in that second tier, the end of this top 10, that are actually stepping up to the plate this year to be legitimate top 6 Olympians. And we're seeing almost all of them in that Arnold lineup. And that's what's making this show so exciting.
Let's go around the horn specifically about Akeem Williams. And the reason I bring him up, obviously, yes, William Bonac, the highest ranking member of this field, winner of the last two of the last 3 Arnold Classics. But really, when you think about who his biggest competition is going to be, and obviously you could throw the names out, right? Obviously Steve Kuklo, because he's coming and vying for a spot at the Olympia. Ian Valliere, 7th at last year's Olympia. Akeem Williams is someone that, really, Dave, we've seen the evolution of Akeem since really the beginning of his days as a bodybuilder, to the point where last year, really, you could argue last year at the Arnold Classic was his coming out moment. And then at the Olympia, bringing such a refined package that, it really just had, people talking aside from that top 5. Akeem was the story. Milos, go to you. What have you seen out of Akeem Williams and this progression of his? And what can you expect to see as sort of that next level that we may see this upcoming weekend?
You see, I'm a huge fan of Akeem even from a few years back, and I say he has so much muscle and a structure.
Yes.
Almost reminding me on Ronnie Coleman at certain poses. Akeem's front double biceps pose is shocking. His thickness of his quads and the hamstring legs are looking out of this world. I don't know who can stand next to him besides maybe Big Ramy. So legs are there. He has a small waist. One time I just made a comment to him, make sure that your abs are glued to the spine so you create those deep abs. Then with this small waist, those lats and shoulders and chest are going to pop out. But I think he got a little offended. He took it as a criticism. I told him as a positive thing. So when I put William next to Akeem and go pose by pose, front relax, Akeem is killing him on the width. So it's still size show, but it's shape show. If you're looking for a shape, you're looking for a X-frame V-taper, round muscle bellies. Bonac is narrow. Bonac is narrow. Akeem is wide. So I don't think that's even a question. From the side relax. Okay, William is thick, but his legs were downsizing lately, and Akeem's legs are just growing indefinitely. So I think on that note, he's going to get him again. Now, when I turn to the back, even though Akeem has a wide, thick back, he doesn't have that refined back of Bonac. Bonac has these lines and hardness and maturity. So I could see Bonac maybe taking him on that one. And then turn around to the front double biceps. Front double biceps, as good as Bonac looks, he still has the torso. It's not as much happening as when big old Akeem open up, just pay attention to his frontal biceps. It's crazy. Okay. Last spread also would go to Akeem because he's wider. He takes more space with the crazy legs that we don't know if Bonac is going to bring his improved legs or last couple of years legs. Side chest, Bonac is great and is giving a run for the money to Akeem, but Akeem's hamstring from the side is it's still showstopper. I mean, so he could go either way there. Side triceps, he could go to the Bonac. He could go to Akeem. It's quite close. Back shots, back of biceps, I would give it definitely to Bonac. Back cut spread, probably on a quality to the Bonac, even though Akeem is wider. Turning around abs, if Akeem is ready, maybe he could win, but everything depends on conditioning. And then most muscular, both guys look freaky. Now, William has established himself as a guy that can always be in top condition. And Akeem didn't have this for a while, and then he showed up great in Olympia. Now we don't see any update pictures from him, so it's a puzzle. But Akeem has a chance of beating current champ. There's no question. And then you see, I could go with each and every other guy to really analyze. I would like to also ask Dave, for example, or Chris, how, when you judge the show, how do you really judge this? Because just overall impression, I just like this guy. But do you like his biceps better or triceps better or quads or which one? If you really dissect it, oh my God, there is so many points that you have to look at. And I'll tell you just quickly, in Dallas, I was watching the show, and first comparison, those top three guys did, I said it, my piece, who wins? And then second comparison, same guys, I called it differently. Now I said, oh shit, now Phil Clahar is beating Ian on this pose. And initially I gave Ian that pose. And then we got third and fourth and fifth and sixth. And 6 times same guys. So I should have a 6 times the same decision. And I would be just, God damn, now I like this guy. So if it's like in a MMA, 10-point my system, and you have to seal the envelope of the first round and give it away and then count, it will be different. I was changing my winners round by round, like, oh, gee. And then I realized judges must be doing the same thing. And I'm sure even you guys now, sometimes, Dave, you gave your views from initial look, but then you see more videos and pictures, and then you scratch your head like, oh, shit, maybe they have a point. Maybe I wasn't right.
Chris, obviously, Akeem Williams reuniting, I guess, with the Camel crew, second time from, I believe, 2017. So I don't know if you have some insight about Akeem and his progress, but break down Akeem Williams, what you've seen over the last year or so, really, where he's taken that next level, and how you see things panning out for him this weekend.
I used to work with him on occasion, with posing or sometimes with some training here and there, and also when he came to compete for the California that year. I'd have some little talks with him on the side about continuing to progress and staying focused on that he can actually get better. He can actually be a force to reckon with in the future. You just got to stay focused and keep plugging away, keep chopping wood. So but I know he was down after that show, but he also came to, came to his own this past year. I thought he improved his density, which probably just bit the bullet more on the diet. Probably just got a little bit more stricter on the diet. Probably, crossed more, trained, harder. He was always a hard-working guy, strong guy. So I just thought he needed to improve. You need to become more of an anatomy of chart type of physique. And if he continue to do that, I think he's going to do great. So if he's back with the Camel crew now, so I know he's expecting a lot of himself, and I know he prides himself on hard work and heavy weights and all this stuff. So I feel like if he can keep improving his back, which needed more density and more separation, he's definitely going to be tough to beat. But, going against Bonac with his, being actually in the same camp, but I know those guys all work together. They don't, outward be like, against each other. They do feed off each other, and they do have a strong net of a team sense out there. But I could see that he did want to improve, and he did come harder. So I'm just really looking forward to seeing how much he improved this time. But I know for a fact, I know that Bonac was hurt. So I know you guys keep saying something about his legs being full or whatever, but I just think that just from the injury, he wasn't able to train how he really wanted to. But I do know that, Bonac's going to be back to his true form, or probably even better. All he needs to do is be fuller in the chest, fuller in some of these areas of his body that, his legs and stuff, how they came down. But he's a hard worker, and I know he definitely wants to win this show also.
Dom, obviously you go back a very long time with Akeem Williams. I mean, really from the beginnings of his bodybuilding career. What have you seen over the last year, and how do you handicap what we might see this weekend out of Akeem Williams?
Yeah, so I mean, like the past couple of years, we've seen Akeem much more detail. Chris just made a point. We need to see Akeem like an anatomy chart. And for years, Akeem trained very heavy, lower reps. He's always been a hard worker. He's always hit the diet hard. But I think the turning point for him was when he got with Oscar a couple of years ago. We trained when I got back into bodybuilding, 2019. We trained together for a few months, and his training was totally different than it was in the past. A lot more reps, a lot more supersets, because the mass wasn't going. He grows just looking at a weight. So combine that with hitting the diet a little bit harder, a little bit more cardio, but it's really been the training because he has the foundation. He's always been huge. I mean, even as an amateur, he was a big amateur. He was strong. He was big. And I made the point before that when he competes, he looks good usually the first show or decent. So we seen him do the Olympia after a long season of competing last year. Looked amazing. Placed 6. I was really happy. His backside looked better. My only worry was the break in between the Olympia and then when he was going to compete this year was the Puerto Rico Pro. However, he stood in pretty good shape. Became an even more improved with the lats, from the front and back. But, he was much harder. He was, again, much more detailed. His skin had much more of a wrapped look as opposed to that thicker look in the past. And mainly the biggest thing with him was the conditioning from the backside, the hardness from the backside, the glutes, the hamstrings, and the upper back and lower back area. But that's all really coming along. And from following him on Instagram and knowing that the mindset he's been in for the last 2 years and, how he's really looking at things and functioning as a bodybuilder, I have no doubts that, he'll be at his absolute best this coming weekend if, everybody in his camp is, up to par with everything. Because like I said, from the Olympia to Puerto Rico, he was amazing. So if everything's clicking as it was, there's no doubt in my mind that Akeem's going to come in and be at his absolute best. And he's going to push almost everybody, including Bonac.
Dave.
Yeah. Obviously, I have a very long history with Akeem. I've worked with him from the very beginning. And so, I've seen his body evolve and change. And, I told him right from the beginning, just have patience. Your body will arrive. Because he always had the strength and he had the mass, but there was the muscle maturity and the separation weren't there. And that just can't be rushed. He has not been training as long as people think. He started much later in life. And so he's just starting to get that muscle maturity, and you're starting to see the 3D look to his muscle now. And I think all his bells and whistles are really starting to show, more so than they ever have in the past. He always had that teeny tiny waist, so I knew that was going to be a real feather in his cap once he put it all together. I think that this show is going to come down to, and Milos, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I believe the show will come down to the back double bicep pose. And that's why I think if we take all the top guys and we analyze who's got the best back double, William Bonac's got one of the best in that lineup, especially when he's all dialed in. He has no gaps in that physique. His lats attached to his waist, essentially. I mean, I think that's where Akeem has a weakness still. He's got tremendous width on the lat spread from behind, but when he hits the back double, he doesn't have as much wow in the middle of his back yet. It's way better than it was, and it's come up tremendously. I think that could be a vulnerability. Assuming everyone else is equal, that means everyone's in shape, which we know invariably 50% of the people will not be in their best condition. And we're only going to be evaluating maybe 25% to maybe to 40% of the people actually at their best. But on the back double, who's got the best back doubles? I think Bonak's got a great back double. I think Nick Walker's got a great back double. I think Ian Valier's got a pretty good back double. Steve Kuklow's got a good back double. I don't know how. I know Sergio's back has come up. He's got the great arms from behind. So I think I think that that's going to be the determining pose at the end of the day. I don't know who's going to win it, but I think if Bonak brings it, I think that no one beats that back double of his.
Guys, let's bring up really one of the biggest storylines, and that is going to be Nick Walker. And I don't want to say it's his big first moment, obviously winning the New York Pro, but for a lot of people, who really only watch the Arnold Classic or the Olympia during the course of the bodybuilding calendar, for many bodybuilding fans, this will be the first look at Nick Walker, especially in a marquee bodybuilding setting against really one of the toughest lineups assembled in years. So, Chris, let's go to you first on this one. Obviously, look, people are going to point at the fact that Nick Walker has said on a couple of different occasions now that he's going in to win the Arnold Classic. I don't remember where he quoted this, but even saying that he would win the Arnold Classic as well as the Olympia. Now, obviously, it's a great mindset to have, and since becoming a pro, there's been a lot of hype as far as Nick Walker's potential, what he could potentially be. He's very transparent as far as his progress pictures. There is no mystery. By himself, he is an absolute monster. Now, we talk about mass versus aesthetics. There is no deniability the fact that he is going to bring mass here. What do you look for? What are you excited to see out of Nick Walker this weekend?
Well, the thing when you talk about Nick Walker, when he competes, he does jump off the screen at you. He's not going to be. You're going to notice him on the stage. He just reminds me of something like what Jay Cutler was bringing. A lot of powerful, shots, muscular shots. His waist has gotten, a little tighter looking. It's not, I know everybody do all these tricks with their waistlines and stuff these days, but it actually don't look that bad, as it used to. So I think it's improved in that area. I think it's going to improve his physique. His back double biceps have came up. I'd just like to see a little bit more detail in those quads and hamstrings and everything. So if that comes, if you can display that, I think it's going to be a strong push for that top 3 area. Just for the fact that he's, they seem to like a lot of muscle at this show, just from historically, and he definitely brings that. He has some nice shots from the front. He's trying to work on the back. I'm understanding whatever, but like I said, if you can get some definition, nice cross-strations in those quads, and I think he can be a strong push for that top 3.
Milos, who does Nick Walker remind you of?
Oh, well, he could be a version of a Lee Priest, to the point, but Lee was for me more aesthetic. Now, let me tell you, a few things first. I really like the whole idea of Nick growing so fast, winning the pro card, coming into the pro show. There was actually debate even if he could have jumped on New York Pro after winning. There was a quick part. They chose to wait for Chicago. And then he did their place behind Akeem, Justin, and Max. Great result. Continue growing, and social media. And I think he has a thing about him. He's showing those arms as people as hands is the phenomenon, right? And then he has those legs, tight midsection, which better than the point that I want to make is when you make a statement in bodybuilding, I'm going to go, I'm going to win. Lee and Paul, and there's like 10 people. Then okay, you can move up a little bit, but any of us to say I'm gonna win. Well, guess what? Week later, you flip flop. Like at any given show, anybody can beat anybody. What I'm saying is that these guys here, I mean, there's many guys that can beat Nick Walker, in my opinion. Yeah, but could Nick showing up at his absolute best and just be that wow factor, kind of like he was in New York, and then convince audience and the judges that maybe he should be considered for a top? Yeah, that's very possible. I just don't think you see that. If you think of a Superman physique, right? I could say that bodybuilding in a one word can be associated with, okay, what is the ideal muscular physique? Superman with a shape, there's ideal, ripped, round muscle bellies, flex filler look-alike, right? This is what you're looking at. And then when you have other superheroes, like let's say Hulk, you just put the mass, let me be a tank, right? And in bodybuilding, we had those two directions. Like I said, when Chris Cormier was going against Jay Cutler back in the day, initially 2002, 2003, I found that Chris's physique is so much more aesthetic. And, there should be no brainer, but he lost. And then not just that he lost that year, but Jay Cutler kept climbing and pretty much became unbeatable with a crazy muscle mass, not so much aesthetics. So
but then there was 2004.
What?
There was 2004. You didn't forget. That's when I thought I should have beat him.
I mean, but there was a few times. It's just like we think of Chris Cormier physique, beautiful, everything, aesthetic, flowing together, separated as can be, flat stomach, crazy back, great arms, really art. So for me, this is what I keep saying. It's hard to deny muscle mass, pick muscular freaks. That's why, bigger is better. I said this in 2003. When if you think 2003, Ronnie Coleman against Dexter Jackson, and you analyze everything, Dexter Jackson 2003 was in just as good condition, or if not better. He was more aesthetic, more symmetrical, more balanced than Ronnie, but Ronnie was just overpowering him with the size. And there was not even a question. They gave it to Ronnie. And that's how they continue, right? So this year, we have a big Rami as a champion that's going to be very hard to dethrone. So you can dethrone him with going size by size. You can maybe dethrone him by bringing something else, that aesthetic thing. So I'm really curious, 2 weeks before the Olympia, what they're going to be looking for at Arnold Classic. I do believe it's Akeem and Bonyak show on the paper. Bonyak being veteran, being a 2-time champion, 1-time second to Brandon Curry, right? So it's going to be very hard to beat. But as you said, this time there is not so many shows, so they're going to give them a chance. And once they start giving them a chance, I can see flip-flops. I can see that Sergio, if he's in top shape of his life, he can move in. I can see that Justin Rodriguez with great improvements because he has that Victor Martinez type of physique, with the front double biceps, back double biceps, looks crazy. I always count on Max. For me, Max is that old school. Once he lifts his arms, everything is perfect. Abs, arms, chest, The Korean guy, I think it's a dark horse that can really, if he brings that conditioning with Neil Hill, this time he's going to be a top runner. So Nick Walker, can he win the contest? Yeah. But it's going to have to go his favor that the judges appreciate that over maybe something more aesthetic, wider frame, more V-taper and polishment.
Dom Cardone, can Nick Walker win the Arnold Classic?
You know what? I mean, Milos pretty much just summed up everything, but can he win this one? In my opinion, no. Because like I said, we have such a mixed bag of guys here, but between Bonak, Akeem, even, Ian, it's just Kuklo, you have not only do these guys have mass, but they have, that deep detail now. They come in shape for the most part, pretty hard, small waist. And the thing with Nick is, it may be different this time. We've seen him last year. We've seen the New York Pro. In pictures alone, he looks like a freak. His posing is much better now. The changes they made to his posing, his training, his waist looks much smaller. His chest is more striated. His legs do look better. Even though last few weeks the legs, maybe he's just flat, but they seem to be a bit down just a touch. But again, they may just be pushing him because he is pretty hard right now based on the recent pictures I've seen of him. But the key is putting him next to these guys because Nick isn't a big frame guy. He has a lot of muscle mass on moderate size frame. He's not tall. Guys like Akeem, Ian, Sergio, they're taller than him. They're also wider than him structurally. So, and these are big guys too. So when you put them next to each other, his flaws will show with anybody. His flaws will show next to these guys. And, like I said, you have guys who are going to become in condition with great shape and size. And, the key is seeing him next to these guys because, like I said, on his own, it's just, you look at him and say, holy shit, he's in shape. He's got the big arms, big chest, great waistline now from the back. He's got the glutes, the hamstrings. So can he win this one? In my opinion, I don't believe so with the lineup. However, we are seeing Nick improving, and I do have a feeling he's going to shock a lot of people because he looked great at the New York Pro, and he's just been making progress from show to show in big leaps. So it'll be a very good showing for him for sure.
Final word, Dave Palumbo. We've talked about all the multiple storylines, whether or not Nick Walker could win it, whether it's going to be a showdown between Akeem Williams, William Bonac, how far along Sergio Oliva Jr., last year's best poser, somebody who we've seen exponential improvements out of. At the end of this weekend, what's going to be the biggest storyline?
Well, if you want to just address Nick Walker, I would not bet against Nick Walker. We could say he's inexperienced. We could say maybe doesn't have the maturity yet to be up there. But you know what? Every time I see this guy, he gets better and better. And you'd be a fool to vote against him. As far as his statement, I think he did that for shock value. The guy's got a great social media following. And you know what? Putting out a statement like that is great because it attracts attention. It gets people watching. It gets people excited. The young guys can rally behind him because that's their champion, so to speak, being one of the youngest guys on stage. I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't think it was done in a cocky sense. I think it was done in a confident sense. And, only time will tell, obviously, if he's right or not. But I wouldn't bet against him. I think he's a legitimate top 3 or 4 guy. It's good. Once again, it's very hard to predict who's going to do well at these shows because you assume that you're basing everyone on their best conditioning that we've seen. And it just never happens like that. Look, Milos and I have seen hundreds and thousands of shows over the years. You never see a lineup where everyone's in shape. So of the guys who come in shape, then we could start, guessing. But I think that there's a lot of guys that are very hungry to go to the Olympia. Kuklo, number 1 hungry guy. Sergio, number 2 hungry guy. Everyone else, I believe, is qualified. So I think we're going to see those guys at their absolute best, peaked out, because they know they got to be perfect for this show. Not to say that anyone else is coming in not trying to peak, because the Olympia is 2 weeks later. But, I think there's less pressure on the other guys, more pressure on those 2 guys. So look to see those 2 at their best. I can't bet against Bonac on this one. I just think the guy is... If you haven't seen a single picture or update from him, he's so focused on what he wants. He gets angry. He wants to prove to everyone that he's still got it. Like Chris said, he was injured. He's not injured. He's healthy. I think he's going to be the guy to beat.
Let's go around the horn. One name, one winner of this Arnold Classic, Dom Cardone.
You know what? Again, Bonac, returning champion, 5th at the Olympia last year. If, his legs are up to par, which Chris is saying that, they most likely will be, I'm going to go ahead and say Bonac's going to win. It's going to be between him and Akeem, in my opinion. But Bonac, the most experienced, and if he's coming at his absolute best, which I have a feeling he's going to be, he's going to take this show.
So 1-0 for William Bonac. Chris Cormier, and I know you have to bounce. You got a couple of training sessions. Who's your 2021 Arnold Classic champion?
I'm going to have to go I'd have to go with Bonac also. Yeah. Everyone knows he's won this show a couple times before. arguably one of the, one of the most experienced guys up there. And I know he wasn't happy with how he looked last year. And I know for a fact that he really wants to show. And I just think if he's coming really crisp, I just know that, judges seem to lean towards his favor when he's in tip-top shape. And I think that's what he's going to be.
Well, we certainly know he knows how to get it done in Columbus. Milos Sarcev, do you agree? Will it be William Bonac or someone else?
Yeah, I mean, listen, both Dom and Chris said it perfectly. He's most experienced. He's elite. He won twice. He was second at Olympia, seasoned veteran, always in shape, thickly muscled, coming back with chip on his shoulder. He has something to prove. If anybody gives me $1 million and go to Vegas and bet, I would bet on William. He's quite a favorite, and like I said, he always delivers. Maybe his conditioning was slightly off, but even with this kind of maturity and serrations and tie-ins and muscle separations and thickly muscled, I mean, I said sometimes even he looks like he has too much muscle on his frame. So when you bring this on the stage and you're in top condition, it's going to be very hard to knock you off. Of course, there is 5 guys easily that can challenge him, but you're asking only for a winner. If I would bet, it would be Bonac.
Dave Palumbo, your 2021 Arnold Classic champion.
I said it in my last statement. I wouldn't bet against Bonac. I think he gets this win.
So it is unanimous amongst the panel. That is going to do it for this episode of Iron Debate. Why don't you, audience members, give us your predictions. Comment below who do you think is going to win the 2021 Arnold Classic. Who do you see in that very, very competitive first call-out? That's going to do it for this episode. Special thanks to Tyler Shore controlling all the panels, everything on the show with Dave Palumbo, Dom Cardone, Milos Sarcev, and Chris Cormier. I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.